Welcome back for our update for the total lunar eclipse in Taurus. Yes, back-to-back eclipses. A lot of things really ready to shift, and very quickly, I would say, especially because Uranus is really in the mix and linking to the North Node. Now, what I am seeing really happening between October and November, and it will be really this ongoing saga that does move through to 2023, because when we do look at eclipses, they usually do relate to an ending of a chapter, especially with this one in particular, because it is a full moon. And very separately, because generally in that cycle, it can happen a week to 2 weeks prior. So some of you may have experienced some of these energies or seen synchronistic events happening in the early stages, or rather around the time of the end of October and moving forward, but it can pan out over a very long time. So these can be subjects that are really going to go through an evolution and a change, especially due to the fact Uranus and Taurus is in the mix. And, I usually call Uranus and Taurus a little bit like a box of chocolates. You don't quite know what you're going to get. Inevitably, it is a good thing. But initially, we can see some ripples that can be a little bit problematic in the initial stages, maybe a bit shell-shocking, but ultimately very positive in the long-term energy. Now, we are going to go through and go chart by chart. Yes, I will timestamp these so that you can actually look at your star sign. Who this eclipse will affect the most is those that have fixed signs that are at 11 or 21 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So if you don't know where those are, you can go to astroseek.com, plug in your birth chart, to get a rough guide as to where this is happening. You can look at the house system. Otherwise, feel free to book a reading and I can go through that with you at an individual level. Now, although you may pop onto this video, we do have these out pre-released for the VIP members, and they are webinars that we host. And if you are a VIP member, you get these free ahead of the cycles, which the calendar's filling up for 2023 as well. So those of you that are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, these are going to be huge endings, but huge new beginnings. So I don't want you to get too scared of it, but it can be something that you're outgrowing. It can be a cycle that you're moving through that is shifting it, but it's very personal, so to speak. But we will cover these inside the star signs. That will be time stamped. And we'll go into some of the predictive energy. There's hundreds of videos on YouTube. I really wanted to put my spin on it to keep you as grounded as possible, give you the most informative information, and to not clutter our minds. By the time we do move into this energy, Mars is going to be retrograde. So there can be this stress level that we're experiencing through our Mercury mind. And so really I was feeling less is more. The more concise the energy, the simpler it's going to be for us to digest it, so to speak, and we can be quite tense. So it's really important to really be nurturing yourself, a few days and a few days out, so you're well and truly prepared for such. So on a tip level, before we get into the thick of it, update your passwords online. Uranus and Taurus can relate to the intranet, technology, electricity, electric storms. It can also be us feeling nervous and agitated. Eat foods that balance that. Try and keep yourself in that really balanced energy. You can go for the cookie jar. I will say nervousness pacifiers are a possibility. If you can, as much as possible, try to avoid those, because it becomes part of an avoidance of a situation and a way and a means to cope with the stress, and look to those more permanent solutions. Now, 3 days before, and I'd easy say, especially because this is a total eclipse, 3 days is being very maybe overgenerous, let's put it that way. I would say you're going to feel it as soon as we move into the month of November, and easy a week after. There can be the ripples a week to 2 weeks after. But really, from a logical standpoint, at least 3 days prior to the eclipse and 3 days after, try to not make any risky moves. Try to digest and unpack what is happening. Uranus and Taurus can bring these things quite suddenly and abruptly. Get grounded, even though it will be that notion of the floor is lava metaphorically. We can see themes coming up in the collective that can be quite stressful. So less really is going to be more. riding the wave like you're surfing it, but also being open that this is going to pass. It's going to be very different, but it can be making us anxious. So that will be one way to really navigate it. I would definitely say, if you can, stay home. Have your backup of torches. There is possibility, there could be a power outage, so to speak, or something to that degree, but try to not get anxious. And again, because we do have Mars, we do have Mars in the house of Gemini, there can be a lot of people feeling very anxious. Some of you might have been experiencing this in October, the end of October, moving into the eclipse in Scorpio. Projection, anger, frustration, fear. Try to be productive. Get your house clean. Do your bath rituals. Have your detoxes moving into it. Keep your fluid up. You will need to keep more hydrated than usual. You can be quite thirsty, which is then going to cause hunger. And move through your clearing ceremonies. And I could say anchor yourself down, but I would say more just, allow the energy to flow through you. A lot of energy upgrades, and it also can be a very psychic time. So you want to protect your crown chakra. So some of the predictive energies that can come through, I'll cover, and there is so many, but here are some ways this can play out. New technology, changes in technology, new ways of dealing with stress. That is one way. I would say there can be new spiritual gurus and new techniques coming up. There could be something in the media to do with how we are dealing with our stress levels, how innovation is one big thing. Now, although it's a full moon and it's an ending, it is a brand new beginning. And one thing I really do predict is the fact that due to what is happening at a collective level, we can find an absolute sheer necessity of using technology in a brand new way. And this can be through organic farming, solar cars, solar airplanes, you name it. There is going to be new technology coming through. And some of it can be quite groundbreaking. But it also can be factories and things to that degree that are maybe going down, having a disaster or some sense of drama around these times. That could be because of an environmental situation. But again, it can be, a change that we will be seeing in innovation. Really great time to change your passwords. I'm really already noticing in October, as I'm recording this, that there are glitches occurring. And again, Uranus can affect the intranet, so it can act a little bit like a Mercury retrograde. Moreover, because we do have Mars in the house of a Mercury energy, we're also seeing like an overload of people on social media, especially with the elections coming up. We could see issues with the polls, with the post box systems, with the electrical online voting polls. So it can look a little bit messy at first and confusing. To say the least. Okay, changes definitely in business, changes in environments and how we're dealing with them, shifts in alliances, more so because we do have that scorpionic energy coming through, but we also do have Mars retrograde in Gemini. It is going to be retrograde until 2023. We won't be out of the woods with that, but we'll be very much reflecting inside. But unfortunately, because of that, it can cause more conflict. So we may see alliances break down, misunderstandings, disputes over goods. That lack mentality can come through. And definitely he said, she said sort of scenarios coming up. News to do with banks, that can be coming up. There could be new technology coming through, really relating to how we're dealing with, our wealth and things to that degree. And again, I can't actually provide any legal, psychological, banking, professional advice. Those things, this is for education based on astrology, but not professional advice. So yes, there could be news to do with banks. Yes, we do need to update our passwords and new platforms online and how we're actually dealing with business, socialization, news coming through that is quite profound and transformative. Farming, women in the media, fashion industry. One thing I was picking, or especially moving from here into 2023, is a potential that we could have a combination of feminine and masculine kind of looks going on. It can be quite edgy, so to speak. Yes, from a logical point of view, one could say it could look very space age. That's one way it could go, but another way can be a very Venus kind of alluring. But there can be more that kind of masculine, feminine vibration coming through quite dominantly, which can sort of be like silks as well as leather, and a combination of the two harmonizing, but really out there kind of looks really with makeup, hair, beauty. It could be more sustainable sort of styles of fashion that we're moving towards, which is recyclable. We could get some edgy, fashion designers coming up. They could actually be on the media. We may have somebody that's extremely famous pass away that is a fashion designer, a beautician, somebody that is quite edgy in the market and up there. And it can be also these companies actually handing it down to their ancestors, so to speak. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. So yes, there can be dips and highs and lows where it does come to the market. And it could be some, although we look at the full moon being a total lunar eclipse, it can be people's value systems really shifting of how we're, spending money, how we're earning money. But yes, it is not a time to do any risky business, to really watch it. It's not going to be a permanent thing. It's going to be a shift we are moving, but wealth shifts, subjects regarding our homes and living expenses, again, could be up on the agenda. Okay, subjects relating to the elderly, subjects relating to the younger generation. It could be subjects to do with schooling, daycare. Politicians can be resigning. Yeah, new technology, beauty, and power changes into solar. The solar energy I was seeing is something that is quite large. Now, from a chakra point of view, each one of you will have a different chakra activated, although at a collective level, it can be the higher heart chakra and heart chakra. There's a lot of passion, right? You need to also understand that during this time, you may wish to pacify, and that can be over-consuming, right? It can be this lack mentality. You can get very hungry. You can get very dehydrated. I'd really keep your hydration up. Meditation of the chakras during an eclipse, try to avoid it if possible. 3 days before you can do such. Give it a couple of days after, then go back into the meditation, but actually let that energy clear from your body and don't overload it, because the moon is going to do the job for you. Grounding, yes, but allow the wave of the frequency to move through. You're going to learn something about yourself, and it's really going to help you. If you do need added support, we do have bookings online that you can get, and that can be either soul coaching. I can either look at your astrology, we can do psychic energy, or whatever you're physically needing on the day, we can directly cover. You could get to a point you have a new stream of income coming in. As we do move in towards the middle of the month, you can see that these things are more than likely going to ease up, and we do have beneficial aspects there. But it is this rebalancing act, and you can find that you gain one set of income stream and you go into another, but something in that area is going to be changing. This can be assets as well. So you may find that you suddenly want to sell some things that you feel you don't resonate with anymore, and they're not resonating with you. It also can be to do with your mother. This can be mother, family, home, lineage, inheritances. Not so much that it can be that that's where things are going, but more the bigger picture of things. What you're doing with your wealth. It could be things that you once valued, no longer valuing them. But I do see some of you are really looking at the bigger picture with both your confidence, your self-esteem, and your future moving forward. From the axis of Scorpio, I particularly feel you're looking at things to do with the past. You could be very sentimental in nature and be holding on to things, even though you understand that there is a spiritual change going on within your own personal life. Mars also can be making you feel very tired. It will be retrograde until 2023. That it can also be a time where you can be more assertive with your communication, but you also could be a little bit more aggro when it does come to your feelings, if you feel people aren't respecting you, or if you're burnt out and misunderstandings are occurring. I would say when it does come to the contractual section of life, to make sure you read the fine print. There can be dramatic changes suddenly, and something that you felt you were going into is looking very different on the opposite side of it. So I would give it about 3 days moving in and 3 days moving out to try and make sense of what it's saying. But you definitely can find that there can be a need for change. And it's almost like Uranus and Taurus is wanting us to understand the necessity for such. It also could be emotional eating. Okay, so yes, moving into it, moving out of it, you could emotionally eat, be in awareness of that. You also do need to be careful, I would say, after the 8th, moving into the 9th, give it, like I said, a few days. There could be this burnout. Try to not rush. But I also feel there could be some information that does come through to you. Big changes in those areas, Aries. Taurus, for you at a personal level, as I mentioned, for the star signs that were directly going to be affected quite a bit, you particularly are, Dales, and that's because you are in the North Node, South Node kind of axis. We will be moving through this. Next year, we're going to have some aspects happening in your house again. But at this point in time, there is a brand new beginning for you. So it can feel very personal. It can feel like you're having an identity crisis. You at a personal level might be criticizing yourself and feeling you need to change. Well, you directly have changed. Some of your belief systems could really be shifting outside the box. Initially, we could take these things extremely personal, but your role and where you're going in the world, especially with the 1st and the 7th house, it can be you versus other people. So after the previous eclipse, which is a new beginning, a new chapter that we did have in the house of Scorpio, be it is happening in your career, in your love life, in your value systems, your beliefs, your body image, your money. Those things now are coming up for, okay, what can you do and what would you need to leave behind in order for those things to be balanced and successful? And how have those things in the last few months really affected you and transformed you? And what is this new belief that you physically have now? So is it that you are returning to work? Is it that you are changing the way you're showing up? Is it an image? Is it a confidence that you have within yourself? The courage to be disliked, I call it. I do feel at a very personal level, a lot of that can be this pressure. I would say moving into November, go easy on yourself. Be aware that these things are going to be changing, and it's okay to express how you feel. But I really say meditate upon those things. Meditate upon what this brand new chapter is going to be for you. And it can be image changes, hair, makeup, diet, health, turning over a new leaf, kicking an old habit to get your life back in order, doing some spiritual work so that you feel more vivacious in your abilities. Now, Mars for you is hitting your 2nd house. And again, it's self-esteem. It can be diet and health. It could be lack mentality and actually moving into, gee, I shouldn't have to fight for this. It could be for those of you that decide, look, you want to go your separate ways. What are we going to do with our assets? That could be a little bit cloudy until 2023. And I'm hearing the term less is more. So if you can lighten it by going into, expressing how you feel, what your needs are, you can get more out of it than you think. But I do feel you're particularly having a new chapter. It may not feel nice initially, but on the upfront, it is going to be more authentic to you and you will appreciate it more so. So whatever this is, doesn't have to be a separation, doesn't have to be an end of a job, doesn't have to be that you run out and you get plastic surgery. If you can wait to do something that is really major, so to speak, I would probably wait until we have planets going direct. 2023 would probably be the best time, because by the time we do move away from this eclipse the next month, by the month's end, we're going into a Mercury retrograde. So I would say mid-month into potentially even 2023 would be the safest point astrologically for that to be a complete success. Gemini, how are you doing, beautifuls? Now, for you at a personal level, you could be feeling more tired. Now, Mars has already gone retrograde. We moved through the first eclipse, which really was about you getting into a routine. Could it be that you are looking at your wellness, your routine? You could have felt quite misunderstood, like you had too much on your plate. This eclipse on this occasion is to do with your belief systems and courage and letting the brand new come in. It's your 12th house. 12th house we can deem as the house, or well, sixth house of the undoing, but 12th house, it can be to do with you having the confidence in a new chapter, letting go for you at a spiritual level. It can be having a great clarity and psychic energy to be able to empathically understand other people. This for you at a personal level could be something that you're dealing with in business, and you have a mindset, everything does happen for a reason. You particularly may have this great idea, but you do need to keep grounded. Now, I would say, especially with it transiting over your 12th house, avoid pacifiers. That can be, I would say for you, not 3 days. I would say a week to 2 weeks in and a week to 2 weeks out. Try to keep away from it if possible. It more than likely will affect you more than most, because we do have Mars retrograde, really in a Mercury zone. And with the axis between Scorpio and Taurus, I think it will affect you more. Now, I do see this to be a positive thing, and I do see it in the long run being great, innovative ideas, sparks of ideas, sparks of being daredevil and jumping in and, actually expressing your truth. Just be really grounded in the format that you do such. Initially, you can find that you feel a little bit stuck and anxious, but if you are in awareness of what this is, it's an ending of an old chapter and a closing of maybe something that you were spiritually coming to terms with. But it's moving into, for you, logically looking at, okay, who am I now? What do I want to be? Does my past define me? What can I do to make my life bliss? Do I need to get into a routine? And I feel that is the real key for you. You should, if possible, stay out of disputes. Mars is retrograde in your first house. It could go worse than necessary. I don't even know if that's a word. But keep out of conflict. 12th house can be the house of mental asylums, incarceration, imprisonment. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be psychological, spiritual, psychic, brand new ideas coming to terms with the past, being excited about a brand new chapter and knowing that you have this in the bag. So have faith in yourself, Stars. Beautiful Cancer, as you are navigated by the moon, this is going to hit you pretty darn hard, even though we didn't really put that in the energy of most. But both you and Leos have something in common, which are directly impacted and affected by the moon more so. You could be very intuitive. You also could feel a lot of people's energy. You could have concerns relating to family and home, but big subjects, I would say, to do with your friendship groups. There could be an ending that comes in a friendship group. It could be a hobby or a pastime that you decide that you're going to leave. You also could be looking at a bigger picture and saying, okay, where it comes to your wealth and your budgets and what you're dealing with, inheritance can come under this for some of you. I would say your role. So if you were maybe at a lower class in a job, you may be going into a higher tier level of work. You also may understand, in order to take your life in a new direction where it does come to wealth, is that a big change is set to happen. And I really do see between now and 2023, you can have some major transformations and changes, but I feel you're tweaking things where it does come to these areas. You could also be going through a change and meeting new people and increasing your social crowd. But I also see you looking at how the impact of your daily schedule is really hindering you and what you can do to fine-tune those things. This could come down to, again, as I mentioned, inheritances, subjects and wealth relating to creativity, personal habits, diet, nutrition, as well as the creativity and something you learned in the past and implementing it now. This can come down to leadership positions, hobbies, pastimes, but changes with friendship groups are very, very possible. Now, Mars transiting through your 12th house can bring about huge revelations and ideas. And I would say if there is something that you're thinking to action, You may find that those ideas that come to you, look at them extremely practically. Feel free to come through and get a booking, and we can really mull out the direct individual situation you have going on, and I can look at your chart and best guide you through the best process to do such. But it could be something as a business idea and how you're going to manage that and how you're going to implement those things, creative ideas. This can also be a great time to do some vault work psychologically, where you are coming to terms for the past, forgiving yourself, understanding a certain situation that has been keeping you quite stuck. Sleeping energy can be quite disruptive around this, and you may find between now and 2023, you need to do an unwind, you need to have a little bit of a detox, because it can be directly impacting your sleeping. It won't be permanent, but digging to the root cause of some of these things and having that time to unwind, use some citron. You could use, winding down techniques. And I'd probably say easy 3 hours before you need to go to bed. You need to get into that zone, maybe read a book, maybe listen to something that's quite calming. It could be a story or just putting some TV on, and you'll find you can unwind. But finding those ways to unwind. Beautiful Leo, how are you guys? Are you ready for the showdown? Now, Darls, best advice I can give you, first and foremost, especially for those of you that have been following me for a very long time, I do say when it does come to anything relating to the moon, and especially, most especially, any eclipse, easy a week to 2 weeks beforehand, you can get a little bit agitated. You guys are sunshine. You want to move forward, but when you can't see the road, it gets frightening, okay? Which means you can feel foggy, disillusioned, disorientated, not feeling quite yourself. Be aware that that's what's going to happen as a potential. And when you're then dealing with whatever those subjects are, if you can't make decisions right away and things are popping off, or you're having an anxious energy very separate to whatever's happening, be in awareness that you're going to be foggy. And this is a natural cycle that Leos will embody, because your sunshine and the eclipse kind of blocks that out. Things will make sense after the fact. Know what time it's going to be and the location you are that it's occurring. Be awareness that from that point, a day before, maybe even 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, it can be a bit foggy. But generally, it's the peak of that cycle, the agitational spikes. So if you need to take quiet time, keep away from white noise, do things that are more medicinal to yourself, I think it's really going to aid you more so. For you at an individual level, I do feel this eclipse also is going to clear a lot to do with the past. I also feel there can be subjects to do with changes in home, changes in family. There could be a dispute that comes to a head. It could be a revelation to do with, okay, what do I want out of my home? For those of you that are running home-based businesses, there could be changes that you're making. For those of you that are thinking about moving home or having to move home, there can be those sudden changes, and that can actually be a positive thing. It can be an end of a problem and a brand new chapter. I also feel for those of you that are actually wanting to potentially purchase a house, you can be looking at the cost of living. You can be looking at the action plan you will need to take. And you can also have Lady Luck. Now, how could that look? Lady Luck could come in the form of winning a house. And again, I can't advise to go and buy lottos for particular zodiac signs, depending on what it was. Potentials are there, but sudden changes definitely can occur. Some of you also could fall pregnant, so FYI, be careful on that. It is more fourth house, but again, there is that potential of surprise pregnancies. Now, yes, this could even be with your children, that your older children come to you and say, hey, by the way, mum, or dad, I just want to say that I'm pregnant. There can be changes with older relatives and younger individuals. I would say also tension and how you deal with the stress and how you deal with your daily routine. how you deal with, the problems that you're dealing with in life without expressing them to people around you. And you could particularly feel you're in it alone. But many people, darling, are going to feel that way. I do feel if you were planning big changes and it was this revelation that one day you wanted to purchase a house, it could be around this time that you have this revelation of how you could achieve that. So try and trust the process. I also feel with Saturn now moving direct as well, wealth creation, changes in that domain can become a little bit more easy, and your love life could be shifting also. Beautiful Virgo, are you ready? Mercury, Mars and Gemini, another Mercury energy going retrograde. You just went through your retrograde last month, both in the combination of Libra and Virgo, and we now have Mars retrograde until 2023. So for some of you, you could feel a little bit fed up. You could be like, oh gosh, I'm feeling a little bit tired. I'm a little bit foggy. And then we move through the first eclipse and into this eclipse in the house of Taurus. For you, it can be really thinking about your belief systems. It can be extremely psychic for you at the moment. This can be subjects to do with siblings, a change in that circumstance. It could be sudden travel. It may be that you're looking at your belief systems. You could be looking at marriage or divorce, depending on how it's swinging. It is a brand new beginning, nevertheless. So wherever you stand, there can be a sudden shift in that dynamic. This also can be relating to love, something happening on their side of the fence. I do feel if you wanted to go into teaching or educating of others, you could be changing a role also. And there could be some paperwork at a very separate level that you're trying to mull through at the moment and correct. And these can be anything to do with wills. It could be to do with inheritances. It could be to do with a contract that you're trying to resolve. But really, as much as possible, especially with Mars at the moment in retrograde, try to avoid disputes if possible. They could get a little bit messy. Mars for you at a personal level is linking to your career sector. If you are thinking about doing a home-based business, feel free to come through and book a private session, and we can mull over how best to navigate that both through the transits and your birth chart, as well as the up-and-coming astrology. So situations that you're wanting to address, this can be returning to an old job. This can be correcting your career path. It can be getting to the root cause of issues, maybe the energy that is required of you to address your career sector. This could be burnout and how do I best manage such? But for some of you, it can be whatever you're rebuilding, redoing, going back to. I do feel particularly the key to it is to keep out of conflict, accept the status quo, and make decisions and plan for 2023 in that domain. Libra. Oh, Libra. We just got through Mercury retrograde, hit the first eclipse, which was in your second house. And that could have been, for a lot of you, changes relating to your resources, changes relating to your wealth, changes relating to your self-esteem, confidence, and diet, and a shift in direction. Some old wounds, I would really say, from last month moving to this eclipse here, were resurfacing, and they still potentially could be worked over as we do move through November. I do feel there's going to be the yin and yang approach to both of this, and I do feel both eclipses are kind of simultaneously dancing with each other in the energy as we do move towards the end of this year. For you, I do see you shifting the way you're creating wealth. You could be selling an asset. You could be looking at getting rid of things that you didn't want anymore and replenishing and recovering. And I do feel around mid-November, you could see that happening in a beneficial sense. But I do feel still until we reach mid-November to December, you do need to be careful with the area of wealth. I do see changes happening in your love zone as well. This can be a sudden change in status. It might be a revelation of wanting to take your connection to the next level. It could be for those of you that are in a connection and you feel it's very toxic, you're ending that. There can be disputes and misunderstandings where you're wanting the give and take to be very flexible. And I do feel some of you, maybe it had been that there had been a circumstance surrounding your partnerships, be it was career, be it was a direct contract and you were renting a house out and getting money, or wherever that money was coming from, or connection that was really creating stability for you. You're really mulling over it and reworking those things. And I do feel it's through you having the courage to change things up that is going to give you the success. It could be that you need to replace some technology at home. I'm definitely seeing paperwork coming through with this energy for you. That could be tax. It could be, it could be a sudden lotto win. It may be that you are mulling through and tweaking things. Might be a washing machine breaks down. But I definitely see, however you're working it, your partner's income, especially for those of you in a romantic relationship, it can be inheritance coming from their side of the family. Separately, it could be that they're changing their money and the way they're earning, and it could be increasing for some of you. If you had issues with the way things were going, I do see that shifting as we do proceed through the month, but there could be a shake-up in that domain. Some secrets may come out that were hidden from you. It could strike a nerve. But I also see this for some of you could be very positive. It can be going from rags to riches. It could be going from riches to rags. Other groups of you, it can be that you have a revelation and the person moves towards you and they're like, right, I want to get married. Let's really buckle down. I've had this great idea. Let's look at this and what can we do in a joint setting. Those of you linking to contracts, I also see that as a potential, but I feel you're fine-tuning them at the moment and preparing through to 2023. Beautiful Scorpio, are you ready for this? Okay, this can be changes in your 7th house. Mars retrograde again can make you tired. I will say that, as I've mentioned to the others. You also could have wounds relating to loved ones that passed over, fear-based frequencies coming up, that you maybe, aren't going to have enough resources to do what you want to do. This is a time of transformation and change. And really with Mars retrograde, it's about, okay, have you been kind of working too hard for it? Is there a different technique you could actually use? Is there a different way you could view this if there was a dispute where it did come to those things? It can be ironed out and transformed. This can be a lot of conversations. I do feel for those of you in partnerships, it may be that you're discussing what the bigger plan is, and there might have been issues surrounding their finances. And the give and take. Whatever is being tweaked and readjusted, I feel you're rationally going to find a solution, but it won't necessarily be around the eclipse. I would say after. I do feel some revelations can come through. You can have sudden changes in status in your relationship. You could go from single to couple. You could go from feeling that you're not being able to be yourself and suddenly needing to shift out of a connection, but it would be more mutual than anything. You can have changes of heart and a little bit of anxiety. You may feel less romantic moving into the month and more romantic as we do move through the eclipse. There can be subjects relating to insecurities and wounds that you mull over within connections. I also feel body-related dynamics are going to crop up, and this can be suddenly having a revelation, right? I'm hacking the old food out. That really isn't resonating with me, and I'm turning over a new leaf. And in order for me to get maybe my body, my image, my diet, my health in order, I'm going to make some radical changes, and I do see that as a huge potential. For some of you, it can be that you find a connection that is very stable, and I do feel your style can be quite edgy, but I would hold off on any cosmetic situations, more from an astrological point of view, until more than likely, if you can wait till, I would say, February, March, probably the best bet. But if you can't, God bless, take care. Sag, let's have a look at your chart and what is coming up for you. Now, this could be a very interesting month. I do see, especially because we will have transits in Sagittarius, you can have some things moving. It can be happening extremely quickly. There can be conflicts in relationships at the moment. There also could be your body could feel a little bit run down and burnt out, and you need less is more dolls, okay? So if you are feeling quite run down, feeling like you don't have enough time to get things done, it is because Mars is retrograde. So slow and steady wins the race. Try to not rush. You can be, like I said, accident prone. You also could find that misunderstandings can happen within your friendship groups, your love domain, your contracts. You could feel very confused about what way to go. If you are trying to get a business off the ground, it could be, discussions and confusion around where the wealth is. I would say with this eclipse, especially at a spiritual level, I feel that you are finding the impact of maybe having to kick a habit, I would say, having too much on your plate, being quite structured in order to win the race. Some of you do have this really amazing idea and you're feeling as though you've been your own worst enemy. Are you kidding yourself? And I feel just wait till after the eclipse. I feel you'll see the proof in the pudding. It can be this nervousness where you're trying to do too much. It could be that you're working 2 jobs, or you're trying to find a way that you can manage your schedule and your finances. I do feel you could be a little bit cross if you didn't see something coming and it takes you by surprise, but just go easy on yourself. Trust around individuals I also see as a potential, and there can be some gossip that comes out that does cause issues and it makes you feel mad about for some of you. Big changes, I do see your body going through a change, and again, I do see for some of you it can be a really great time to avoid pacifiers moving into this, and really moving, throughout the month. Be cautious on that level. Capricorn, Pluto is direct. I bet you're glad of that. But then we've got all this heavy energy happening between Taurus and Scorpio. Now, I do see for you guys with Saturn direct, you could find that you're looking at ways to be more confident and deal with things. It could be subjects to do with wealth that you're looking at. I do also see this could be a time where there are changes happening around your children. There could be changes surrounding your romance and the things you like. For some, yes, I do feel there could be changes that you are feeling you need to make where it does come to the luxuries. Now, that could be that you were maybe eating on the run, or that you had too much of a good thing. Very separately, it can be that you're wanting more to actually enjoy yourself, and you're actually looking at your budget and saying, okay, we need to turn over a new leaf. There can be a creative project that you finalize. There could be a chapter with your children that is ending and a new one is beginning. So it could go from your kids going from primary school to high school. It could be that they say that they're pregnant, something to that degree. It could be that a child gets married or flees the nest. I'm also seeing the communication style and the feelings and the home-related environment, the creativity, maybe running a home-based business for those of you. It could be sudden changes around that. Yes, we could have power situations playing out. It could be that your computer seizes and you lose a creative project. I'd really highly advise any of you that are doing anything creative online, make sure you back up your hard drives, because there is a possibility of this acting a little bit like a Mercury retrograde. I would say changes in diet and health, changes in the way you relate to romance, maybe airing some dirty laundry, shifts in the wealth within the house, and transformation in that domain, nevertheless, as well as love. Aquarius, yes, Saturn is direct. Okay, we just went through the first eclipse. Saturn's direct. You can feel the pressure coming off. Next year, we will have Pluto moving into Aquarius. At the moment, we have Mars retrograde as we reach the total lunar eclipse in Taurus. I do feel spiritually for you, you can feel a little bit agitated. I do feel your communication style and rushing and, emotional eating is possible near this eclipse. I also feel there can be changes in your home environment. This can be changes in the relationship that you have with siblings. It could be changes with children. It might be changes with your direct accommodation. You might want to beautify your home. There could be something that you own that breaks. So, try and make sure that you've got everything kind of in order and look after it. And I'd also make sure that you add security. I do feel for some of you, there could be a circumstance surrounding inheritances and legacies that for some of you could come through. I'm definitely seeing home-based business as a positive possibility. If it was an idea you had and you was thinking to yourself, gosh, okay, the cost of living, how do I deal with this? What do I change in my life? Could I potentially do something from home? It could be that you're looking at the budget. I also feel almost looking at what you get versus what it costs. That could be in the mix, and it can change very radically. Make sure to read fine print. You could have somebody moving in. Somebody could move out, but there is a shift in that domain. Also think to do with the past and your career. You're changing things up. You're swapping the way you deal with things. Some of you could have been working from home. Some of you then could swap that and now return back to work. I do feel a lot of family-related dynamics are coming up, and it's causing a little bit of issues. I do feel it'll settle down. You got major mapping that you're doing, and you're really making a big map for your future. This could be that next year you decide that you want to move locations. I feel some of you could emotional eat during this time. There could be misunderstandings for those of you in relationships. But I do feel overall, make sure you keep your fluid up. You can use citron to ground yourself in amethyst. Try to not take everything personal. This can be quite a huge shift for you. But spiritually, as long as you've done the shadow work, where Pluto is retrograde, you're going to have direct clarity in order to move forward. They're asking you to be realistic because things can change. They're also asking you not to make any risky situations surrounding home, family, children. Pisces, let's have a look at yours before we wind this down and cover the rest of what I see. Okay, with Mars retrograde, some of you could be looking at changes in your home. Now, that's going to happen probably more so as it goes direct, but things can be popping off as we do have this eclipse in Taurus. You could get a little bit more ratty than usual, or nervous or agitated surrounding home, family, siblings, the direct budget, but there can be things at an emotional level cropping up, especially from your child as well as the direct environment. Rattiness, crossness towards your loved ones as possible. Yep, definitely. Changes in what you are wanting to do at home and with your family is coming up. For some of you, you could be discussing it with loved ones. Some of you could be looking at a sudden change. I would say, especially surrounding you, your children. Warn to drive carefully, okay? Warn them to drive carefully, all of you. I would say particularly spiritually, if you had had a lot of time where you were sitting and muddling over a situation, I feel it's almost like I'm hearing the term, it's time to pay the ferryman. But it's a direct direction that you're wanting to go, okay? It's almost the notion I'm getting the courage to be disliked, the courage to challenge the wind, and the courage to get what you want out of a situation. I do feel for some of you, you may need to purchase a new technology. This could be a new television. It could be a washing machine going out or a refrigerator. I would say make sure you check your smoke alarms and make sure all electric cords are away from water. Be super careful with that. I do see some of you actually getting a new vehicle. I see some of you looking at a contract and mulling over it and deciding to take a leap of faith, but there appears to be, both on the home front and how you are coping with your stress levels and your life, it's almost like push come to shove, and you're having this revelation of what you need to shift in order to move forward. I think if there has been this avoidance, there could be a large expense. but also feel there could be some benefits too. For some of you, there could be a subject surrounding a mother figure. This could happen quite suddenly. If you are having conflict with that individual at a verbal level, it could be that this raises during this time. But this also can be the person's wellness as well, shifting. Last but not least, with Mars retrograde, I would say you could be feeling that, with your wellness, holding and suppressing your emotions and not articulating them. You could find that that does come to a head and you could be a little bit more peevy as we do move into the middle of that. I would say, especially from a holistic point of view for all of us collectively, to really listen to our feelings, to understand this is going to be a very, very busy time. And we more than likely can be quite stressed. Try to not get sucked into propaganda or that things aren't going to change. Things will level out. We just need to be very patient. We may see in the media people that are very abrupt, very rude. It could really go against the grain of our ethics and morals, and try to not get caught up in such. I would say from a holistic point of view, if you can eat foods that are really going to balance your nervous system, this is not medical advice. It can support you. I would say you may find that you're more indulgent. You're going to want the candy. You're going to want the heavy foods. You could be very critical on yourself after the fact because it is a full moon. We're moving into it, so we could overindulge in old patterns. It could be eating, drinking, smoking. Just try to avoid that if possible because we're going to go to extremes. One way you could deal with it is by maybe having a hot chocolate on hand and having some sweet dates or having those backup foods that when you do have that sweet tooth, you can move towards it. But you may also find excessive coffee and things like that. They're going to keep you up, they're going to get you dehydrated, but they're also going to cause probably more stress than usual. Meditation can also be quite helpful. I would do it moving into it, not during, and then after you can do such, depending on what you feel is really coming up. Solar plexus in insecurity and creativity, it can be very sluggish. I would say be really realistic about how you use your energy with Mars being retrograde. A, we're going to be more moody. B, we can be more going down the route of gossip and vendettas, and we just don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Be aware that everyone will feel like it. So if you're needing to go shopping or do anything, go to and from and then come straight home and keep away from white noise. Those running businesses are going to find new ways, new platforms, new changes. We may find sudden changes in certain businesses where they do go bust. We could find that other businesses are finding new innovative ways of dealing with things, but definitely we can see a need for shifts and changes. Try to be patient through the eclipse. For some industries, you may find it increases. For some of us, it may be that the industries of technology or trade or food, beauty can really increase, but spiritually we also could see like those that are more the holistic approaches of those things as well. Venus will be very dominant in this cycle. And I do see the old and the new themes coming up. I particularly do see for those that are in relationships, particular star signs can have it more so. Definitely, as I mentioned, the particular star signs at the beginning of the video, those can have some adverse situations popping off, especially where it links to relationships. Nothing will ever end your relationship. It either is or isn't. So if it can be worked through during these challenging times, generally speaking, through an eclipse, you'll find it'll evolve and change. Could it bring about breakups? Yes, because we do have Mars retrograde in the house of Gemini, which can be gossip, cross wires. I'm telling you, I said it back in October as we were reaching the first eclipse, a lot of gossip and dirt that was hidden is going to come to the forefront. So if you haven't seen it, it's going to come out. Those little white lies are going to get seeped through and they can be the place of our undoing. Very separately, it can be that our ideals aren't matching. So therefore, both parties look at the situation and go, look, we really aren't on the same page. I think we need to shift. Now, in career point blank zero, we can see shifts in trends. Definitely with Mars retrograde, one thing I would say is those areas like daycare, schools, shopping centres, the communication industry, there's got to be a lot of evolution and change. There could be a little bit of lagging in that area and lack of motivation. So it's going to need to be quite punchy in our communication style. I would say if you are feeling there is a shift in your career, looking at things practically, communicating effectively, reading the fine print, accepting the status quo. It could be that you're in a job and you think, God, I hate this job. What am I doing? Take that natural step after the eclipse, network out, do the things you need to do, and prepare for the new. If you do need a booking, you can go to the link directly below. I hope this has served you, and I will see you on the opposite side. If you do want to find us, as I mentioned, all the links are directly below. Take care, beautifuls.